out to be completely unreliable assholes.
Timber Tim.
Ryan, how are you?
I'm doing fine. Thank you too. Man, I love some Roy Orbison.
Who doesn't?
I don't know. People who don't
Let's
know
kill
of him.
them.
Okay.
What's up, dude?
Well, I'm excited to be back in our little room talking, Tim. Talking about horror movies. It's what we do here.
Yep.
For episode... What is it? Oh my God. We're on episode 44, Tim.
Jesus.
We're on episode 44 of Dismembering Horror.
Oh, I'm itchy. I'm itchy. We've done so many episodes.
You're itchy from those duplicate digits.
Yeah.
For Dismembering Horror. I think that's accurate. I'm happy with our title, Tim, for what we do here. You know what? We dismember horror. If you don't know what that means, this is the podcast show where myself, Ryan McDuffie,
and myself, Tim Aslin.
Well, we like to talk about what worked for us, what did not work for us, and anything we found interesting or noteworthy about, well, a slew of horror films that we've been wanting to see that are of interest to us or are hopefully of an interest for you to hear us talk about, that you have let us know you want to hear us talk about. And where this is the never-ending quest for digging up the gold, too, of horror films.
Yeah, why is shit scary?
Yeah.
Why is it scary?
And as you put, like, when we first started this, Tim, I don't know if this was even on air, but I just remember you talking about, like, I feel like just to pick a genre, horror sounds somewhat achievable to sort of get a fix on, a knowledge basis of seeing.
Can you imagine if we were like... This is a podcast about dramas.
Right.
Oh,
or comedies.
Shit. I mean, I could almost see comedies. You can, like, kind of find a lane with comedies.
Yeah.
Although it's pretty broad, but, like, I don't know.
I feel like a horror or a documentary are pretty...
There you go, yeah.
A lot of good documentaries out there.
Probably
a lot of not good ones out there.
Probably. I'm sure.
But the good ones are really good, just like horror.
Yep.
Yeah. And... We went to the theaters, as you may know, to see this week's film, this episode's film. What's your face saying there, Tim?
Well, I feel like we should just take a little detour from what we usually talk about and address something that I think is really important, which is theater etiquette. So, I'm going to paint you a picture. We get to the theater, which was in Burbank.
The AMC Burbank 16.
It's a big, big theater.
To see our advanced screening of I'll Give It Away Now, we saw The Dead Don't Die.
That's right. So, we get in there. We have basically middle center of the theater seats. What were we? 8 and 9.
Mm-hmm.
G. Or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So we sit down, we're chilling, whatever, it's filling up. A few minutes before the trailers or whatever start, this dude comes like storming in. He has a baggy t-shirt, a beanie, a beard, baggy jeans, and flip-flops. That's his attire. He also has one of those key card, like, keychain things that's, like, clipped to his pocket.
Yeah.
That they roll up so you can extend it and then let go, and it rolls back up into his buckle or whatever.
His being.
Yeah. Okay, so this is that guy. So that's who we've got. And he comes storming into our aisle.
Our space, really.
And slams himself down into the seat next to me. Now, granted, I get it. It's assigned seating. This guy made me feel like this was not his assigned seat. That he just was like, I'm going to the middle of the theater and I'm sitting in the seat that's closest to the middle. Because that's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
So he flops himself down aggressively and proceeds to do the classic leg shake thing, you know, when you're basically tapping your heel aggressively.
What's that called? Restless leg syndrome.
Sure.
He very much had that.
It is so aggressive. Like hyper, he's going like, ba, 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 and it's so intense.
Nonstop.
That I can't, you know, he's right next to me. Also, there's 2 seats next to him that are empty.
Yeah, he didn't have to sit next to you.
He could have given us originally I wanted to call this podcast, before you and I had talked, I wanted to call it the movie buffer. As like sort of a double entendre of like, we're buffing out the movie, or I guess a triple entendre, buffing out the movie, but also we're movie buffs. And he's shaking his leg, and I'm thinking, God, this is a lot. Like, you know, like when somebody who's intense is in your proximity and you can just feel it like coming off
I could
of
feel
them.
it. You
were 2 seats away, right?
Yeah. I had it because he did it for the first few minutes of the movie, right?
Right. So it doesn't let up.
I had to like I held up my hand. It was so distracting just to not see.
Yeah, because even when the
shaking.
lights went down, I thought, oh, maybe it will be less obvious. And it just wasn't. It was so intense. So that's how we start off. What you didn't notice, I think, is that he was also making a noise, a verbal glottal noise. So he kept going like this.
Okay, enough, please.
And it did not stop for the first 20 minutes of the movie.
I just know it's a perfect impression you did. Yeah.
Then I finally got to a place where I was like, okay, I feel like the movie's gone on long enough that I can kind of shift my focus and like be watching the movie and not as distracted. It's like I've acclimatized to his bullshit.
At least he stopped shaking a couple minutes, and I think he saw us staring.
He did eventually, yeah. Then he starts doing this weird shifting of his weight. So he'd like lean over onto the armrest between him and me, like full body. So he's like in my space, and he's putting his hand up against his cheek. So he's resting.
He just wanted that middle seat so bad.
I think you're right. I think that's what this was. Then he starts flicking his thumb like this. I'm going to do it into the mic. Over and over. And I look over, I'm like, what? It was all I could do to not be like, dude, what the fuck are you doing?
Right.
Stop. Then, okay, so we're not done. We're halfway done. Then he's doing this weight shifting thing where he's like heavily like huffing down onto the armrest, right? His hands there, and he's doing the flick thing. And then he's like slapping his leg against the floor. He's wearing flip-flops, so it's making a slap noise. So he's like, every once in a while he'll just go. It's like, fuck, dude, what more could you do? Then he fucking starts flicking his beard. So literally taking the back of his hand and flicking like that on his beard. And this is like, I don't know, 12 inches from me?
Yeah.
Then he fucking took his phone out and started texting. And I almost just reached over and strangled him.
Yeah,
I wanted so fucking badly.
They had a good
shame him.
PSA. I was proud of AMC being like, don't even take out your phone. The screen distracts people.
No shit. So like, all in all, it made me so badly want to, like, when the lights came up, to stand up really quick and be like, can I get everybody's attention? I just want to ask a quick question. Did anybody else in the theater have the experience of sitting next to the fucking worst human being on the planet? Or was it just me? Because he's fucking right here, and he shouldn't be allowed in his fucking movie theater ever again!
Well, maybe he'll listen someday.
What if he does listen?
I had the polar opposite next to me. He sat down like it was just a assigned seat. I'm like, I get it. Okay. It's completely, didn't make any quiet as a mouse. The end of the movie, just, said something, observation about the movie after the credits ended. It was fine.
Yeah, kind of like a cordial, normal human being who knows his surroundings, and also that it was a pre-screening, so there are probably people there who want to, like, have a little bit of a back and forth conversation when it's done.
I'm sorry that You suffer the brunt of all that.
I will tell you what, it is very difficult, for me at least, to focus on the actual movie when any of those things are happening, even for just like the slightest amount of time. And I have sort of logged a bunch of these experiences, in my life where I'm like, the time that the lady did this and the time that the guy did this. I have like 15 of them that are really intense. But in almost every case, they only happened for about 4 minutes, right? Like the thing that is the most annoying was only like a momentary thing. And usually the person either realizes they're doing something or they get through it and then they stop. This guy was just full on the whole time. So, fuck you, dude. I hope you fucking listen to this. You're the worst person.
Well, if that was the theater going experience, should we talk about the movie?
Sure. So I'm going to not bring any of that up again.
Okay.
Because I don't want you all to be distracted by what I was distracted by while we're talking about the actual
I thought that
movie.
was going to be our thing of note because I didn't have anything else for this film.
Nah, man, I had to get it out. Otherwise, I'd be thinking about it the whole time.
Bring us into where you... maybe it's pertinent to this is where Tim was at when watching... What did we watch again?
The Dead Don't Die.
In this peaceful town, on these quiet streets, something terrifying, something horrifying is coming.
Excuse me, we're closed. Get away from me!
What the hell was it? A wild animal?
This is really awful. Maybe the worst thing I've ever seen.
What was it, wild animals?
So what are you thinking?
I'm thinking zombies.
What?
You know, the undead. Ghouls.
You look gorgeous. Oh my. Are you in this together?
Flesh-eating zombies.
Don't joke, it's really, really creepy.
Oh, man. This isn't going to end well.
There we have it, Tim.
Oh, yeah.
There was the trailer for the film we saw.
Yep. By our best friend.
Jim Jarmusch.
Yep.
I wasn't sure if you were talking about who you said you weren't going to bring up anymore, your new best friend.
Don't bring him up!
I wonder what his name was.
Shithead McGee.
Hi, nice to meet you. Shithead McGee.
He's like, hi, I'm Shithead. I go by McGee.
You just hated him so much. But I don't hate this filmmaker, Jim Jarmusch. I had seen...
Oh, yeah.
Let's see. Well, actually, here's the thing. I'm really not, for being a film dude, I'm really not too familiar with his work. Like...
I think he's a very specific subgenre lane.
I mean, I can say I really want to see Down by Law. I've seen Coffee and Cigarettes. I've seen, Broken Flowers is the one that's most, clear to me that I can recall and remember.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that, actually. And thinking about it again when thinking about this film and this filmmaker, I'm like, oh, yeah. It was unique. I like that. I remember the feel of it, which I can't say, about a lot of movies.
Yeah.
And then I remember seeing Ghost Dog and just being like, what? I think I just didn't have the context for that one.
That was about my response to that, too.
Yeah. But I was younger. I don't know. Anyway, I'm curious to see more of his work after this film because I think if we want to get into rating it, that I may be an outlier, Tim, in how I enjoyed this film.
You may be.
It's not been getting very stellar reviews.
Yeah.
In fact, it's been getting pretty middling, I would say. Pretty zombie shuffling.
Well, we'll explore why.
Tim.
Yes.
I'd tell myself to rent this film.
Okay. I mean, okay. I almost want to say avoid it, but I think that that my lean between stream and avoid is circumstantial.
Okay.
So, I think, it's just a stream for me.
I'd never seen anything like this. It was such a distinct, interesting feel.
Okay.
The themes, even though they were familiar and done to death, ha ha ha, I'd never felt them in a film before.
Okay.
I don't think it was... The fact that it wasn't laugh out loud funny wasn't an issue for me. I didn't see it as... I never wanted it to be that.
Except for that one other dude in the theater who decided it was laugh out loud funny.
Every
fucking line.
I think this was, just being easing into Jim Jarmusch thing, but the fact, like what I guess is very him, I'm told, is the acknowledgement that it's a film within a film, they acknowledge it's a movie.
Sure.
I loved all that stuff. It was just sort of what's so refreshing to be like, okay, yeah, no, there aren't rules, guys, to filmmaking. Right. This is we can do this.
That seems to be one of his main sort of broad tenets that he talks about, of just being like, fuck structure, fuck the sort of traditional, like, you have to do it a certain way, like, fuck narrative, like, traditionalism, and also real time. He's big into it, like, he wants things to like get across the idea of this is all happening in real time.
All that I'm a sucker for.
Okay.
So if you are too, and you're like me, then maybe I could tell you to rent it, but these reviews are telling what we tell ourselves, so I would tell myself to rent it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, ultimately, a lot of what you just described as things you like, I acknowledge that they were done and done to the points, well, like done to their intention, but I just didn't enjoy the whole sort of... None of them, they all felt, what's the word? They felt kind of shit. They felt thin to me. Like, I was like, oh, they're just doing this thing. Mm-hmm. And I never kind of was like, oh, they're doing that thing so fucking well. Mm-hmm. It felt almost early draft-ish to me in a weird way. And I don't mean, partially I mean the writing, but I'm using that term more so in the execution of the film altogether. Like, it felt sort of like, not lazy, but kind of just like, yeah, we know what we're doing. Let's just do that thing. Mm-hmm. With exceptions, but as a broader feel, I kind of was like, I think they could have done like 2 or 3 more takes and nailed this. Mm-hmm. So,
whatever this is.
Yeah, like whatever the thing they're trying to accomplish. It felt like it needed a little more practice or rehearsal or attempt to me to get it to a place that I would have liked. Mm-hmm. But I get it. I mean, that's his style. So
for me, it's like if Broken Flowers was the film where it's not necessarily fun to watch in the kind of way because it, but that's because it's capturing so well this feeling of like missed opportunity in the form of romance or whatever, come to, plenty over the hill kind of era of your life. This film for me was like that for a horror movie where it just had such this utterly like specifically skewed, not as far as nihilistic, but just this sort of very specific viewpoint of, I don't want to say completely hopeless because he does have a sense of humor about everything. Yeah. But very like not pulling any punches with how he as far as generalizing, people's bad points, I guess. Yeah. And to have that wrapped up in a horror film, it felt like it was, because it was a horror film, it felt like it was very, very effective for me as a horror film. I didn't look at it as like a light romp. It got to a really heavy place for me. And for that, but a place where I was able to sort of it was like watching someone die, but in a way that wasn't just a miserable experience, but felt like a contemplative one.
Yeah. I mean, I get that. I think that's kind of what he was. I think that's part of his intention as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
And I think that's why certain people really fucking love him, because like it like strikes a chord with them that I think the rest of the world is often either shitting on or like dismissing.
Yeah.
I don't think I live quite on that end of the spectrum, you know? So it's like I kind of intellectually, I'm like, I think I get what you're going for. It just doesn't hit the right chord for me. I'm on like a different key.
Got it. I mean, yeah,
I guess that
guess
fucking music analogy going.
I am in that camp because just plugging into this feel and sort of sharing this, we'll get into it. It was what I want from movies. So
okay, cool.
Pretty big thumbs up for me.
Well, let's
get into it more.
Let's summarize it then.
Oh, right, yeah. Let's summary.
Okay.
What was actually going on in the film? Tim.
So, Centerville, Pennsylvania?
I don't know.
I think so. So it's small town, Pennsylvania / America. Got a couple. Well, we start off with the cops being dispatched to the woods because there's been a call that the local, what would you call him? Kind of hermit nutbag who lives in the woods.
Tom
has
Waits.
been stealing some farmers' chickens. What's Steve Buscemi?
Steve Buscemi's chickens.
Yeah. And so we meet the lead cops, who are Bill Murray and
Adam Driver.
Adam Driver, thank you. I don't think that it's necessary to use anybody's character name in this because we all know they're actors. So they go off and we kind of get this, I don't know, it's just sort of a vague commentary on, you know. Well, we get like their characters very quickly.
Yeah. And we get it's a very small town, so we get the cast of characters quickly too. We've got the new undertaker, what's the person who dresses up bodies for the morgue? Mortician, Tilda Swinton. We got Chloe Savini's the other officer who, if like Bill Murray and Adam Driver are super deadpan, she's the like super emotional one. And then you mentioned Steve Buscemi. Then we got Danny Glover.
Just a local blue collar dude.
Yeah, with his buddy who I knew from New Twin Peaks, Caleb Landry Jones.
Yeah, he's been around. He's in a couple of the X-Men movies.
And then, a couple sort of I'd call cameos as the zombies in form of Iggy Pop and Carol Kane. And then we also sort of got to represent the younger generations. We have the big city out-of-towners, which is Selena Gomez and her two male companions going to stay at the hotel on their way somewhere. And then also we have they're in like a jail for kids, whatever, or like a rehabilitation.
The CDC is the Center for it's the
correctional facility for these young teens.
It's the detention center, correctional detention center, I think it's called.
And then basically we just sort of watch them react to the situation,
right, and
then die.
And the big first thing that everybody starts noticing is there's this broader thing going on in the world. Like there's been polar ice fracking.
It's just this hodgepodge of terms.
That has caused the Earth's axis to be tilted off its normal axis, which has now caused daylight to be skewed. So now it's like in the first day, they keep commenting that the sun, why is the sun still out? It's 9 p.m. It's 11 p.m. Like, this is weird.
Yeah.
There's also a weird purple aura thing that's like floating around the moon.
Oh, yeah.
That is never really addressed. It's just a thing that's happening. And Tom Waits in the woods is sort of the one who initially is like, this is weird. That shouldn't be happening. That's odd. There's weird shit that's growing in the forest that normally doesn't grow. The ants are moving in a weird way. They don't usually do that. So something is up.
Yeah.
And what is up, I guess, as a result of all of these, the earth being tilted wrongly, is that corpses are reanimating and crawling out of their graves and start eating people.
Yeah.
And so it really is just that, right? It's everybody in the town kind of confusedly being like, what the fuck's going on?
The cops are our center through line. And so if you were following them as the story, it's basically everyone else just eventually dies. And then they get back to the police station after checking some things out, going to the hotel, killing some zombies, and then decide to go on patrol because there's nothing else left to do. The world's ending. And then because Adam Driver's character, or Adam Driver, we don't know which, meaning's blurred, has read the script for the film we are watching. They know
it's going to end badly.
They know it's going to end badly. He knows how they're going to die. So they step in to meet their fate and have a final fracas.
Yeah, that ends badly for them.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the story. Let's keep going. Let's do what worked.
What worked for you? What worked for you?
It worked like a charm, Smith.
What worked? What worked for you?
Yeah, well, what did work for you, Tim?
Well,
I got so much. I want to talk about.
I for me, it's like I said, I wanted it to go further into a place that I would have liked. Since it didn't, the reason I wanted to go there is because I like the characters so much. And I like all these actors a lot. And so I wanted more of that. So for me, the thing that worked really, really well was just who each of these characters are. Like Bill Murray is fucking great doing what he's doing. But I wanted more Tom Waits. And I wanted more fucking, like, basically I wanted to know more about everybody. But that's not what Jarmusch's, like, style or intention is, which is a bummer for me, but whatever. But I love the characters. I really like the zombie design of their insides are basically dust.
Yeah.
They're like, it's like, I guess, their blood has dried up and blackened. And so when you get a kill, like a head chop off or whatever, dust sort of like black dust flies out of them. And I don't think that I've seen that anywhere.
No, I think that was his contribution.
That was a genius fucking sort of new way to do it.
It's fun. It captured that they're corpsey.
That's
in a
right.
way,
And I like the weirdness of the world.
Can we use that as a jumping off point for all the things we have that I have down?
Yeah, definitely.
Because the weirdness of the world, that for me was very like borderline Mandy of this is not reality, but not just in the sense of, oh, it's polar, like that term is like a fake term, it's right. Like it's two disparate ideas that sound like they could kind of be meshed together because they're often sort of thrown up in sort of same but different context. So it was that whole effect of like a creation of its own reality. I just love so much where it's like the small town where it's like, but we don't have a sense of the outside world except for an equally weird news station and reporter. The moon, like you said, was just super like, whoa, this isn't any kind of reality I can sort of get any bearings in, it puts me in that really interesting place. Like, okay, so there's a UPS truck that's called something else, yet there's...
Oh, it's WooPS because it's fucking RZA from Wu-Tang Clan.
Right, but it's like, a play on it, like it's a Naked Gun or something.
Yep.
But then we have Star Wars existing in this universe and other pop culture references. So you're like, what? And then just that feel of the extended day, all of that. But then to take it even further, what I loved, and this is what just sort of put me in that, I think, very receptive place that I want to be for a horror movie, and sort of like being able to plug in what I guess are, you know, common tropes in a zombie film, sort of see them fresh or new or sort of more than I ever had before, was how like that this world building, on top of that, there's like a layering effect almost of not having any sort of, we're blurring the lines between our reality and the reality of the film. That's sort of like when we've talked about the ending to a good horror movie, that, or like the anthology films that we've watched, you know, or I think in Ghost Story specifically, any film that does that, you know, sort of, oh my God, where's the movie start and end kind of feel.
You know, I just had a realization of, to that point, it's similar sort of to what Jordan Peele did with Get Out and Us, where it's like, I mean, he's leaning a little, well, with Get Out, he's leaning much closer to it being a real thing. Yeah. Like in a real world, like it's our current reality. But with Us, that's not the world. It's commentary, effectively. It's a world built on commentary. And this very much feels like that. Like everything in The Dead Don't Die, every world building aspect is a comment on something in our real world, but is not the real world. It is a nod to something.
Right. But this too, you have the performances plugging into what I'm talking about. Like what you said, how it's very much sort of gives a real time effect, whatever that is, as well as just his dry, yet amused, bemused perspective. But like other things that, I don't know what to call it other than this layering effect where, as I said, it's like I feel like this movie was getting sort of crapped on for saying this is all overused, familiar social commentary about zombies, you know, as consumers drawn to their habits, which we see in this, but it felt more accessible to me as far as acting as critique than in any other one. Dawn of the Dead is like, you know, it's like, okay, it is the more sort of fun survival action movie kind of thing with this as a background. But this I felt like was all about sort of this perspective of critiquing them like as a film. And other things that just sort of did this for me was, you know, we said referring to itself as a movie.
Very much so.
The name of the song is the name of the movie.
Right.
And then like Keep America White Again, you know, Steve Buscemi's hat playing that character. But it's not just a play on, I mean, it is, but it's not just a play on like Make America, what is it, the actual Make America Great Again? Yeah, because you have Keep, you know, messing it up, and then you have the white. Like, it's not just one, you know, it's not just making a pun out of it. It's just sort of like meanings lost because you're sort of are taking it too far. Well, you know, almost.
I think what you're describing, a concise way to describe what you're talking about is most movies live with subtext. Right? Like having the guy wearing a red hat that has any writing on it is the subtext of that is, oh, this guy represents a specific thing that we know of in our real world. This movie is basically writing out the subtext. There is no subtext. The movie is taking subtext and making it the text.
Right, because it's not just like a pun on the hat again. It's like he's just...
It's saying literally what the subtext
Keep America
would
White
normally be.
Again.
Right.
Again.
So
but it doesn't even make sense grammatically.
But it's
like,
satire.
Keep it
that's
again.
That's what satire is, right? Like
but
it's showing us the thing and being like, look how fucking stupid the thing is.
Right.
But then having characters that either are so in their thing that they don't need to acknowledge it, or they're so self-aware in and of themselves that they have to point it out. And the fact that the characters are strong and endearing, watching them point out the subtext and be like, hey, look, instead of it just living in subtext, they're saying the subtext. They're like, Bill Murray's like, wow, it's like they're drawn to the thing that they're familiar with. It's like, yeah, we fucking know. We're watching it. But like the character doesn't know and needs to express, like his character needs to express it.
Yeah.
So it's again sort of like taking the overt and obvious subtext and saying it, which I think is an interesting way to make a script in movies.
That's definitely what is happening. I guess what I'm trying to like articulate though is there's an extra step there going on, you know, again with like what it says, keep America wide again, but like Adam Driver, who's in the Star Wars movies, having a Star Wars keychain, you know, that's not necessarily satire. It's just
It's awareness. It's overt meta self-awareness, right? Like,
yeah,
it's almost, you know what I think it actually, maybe a better way to say it is he's taking the things he knows the audience is going to think and putting them into the script.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like holding the mirror up to the audience and being like, yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I know you know.
Exactly.
Let me fucking shove it in your face and be like, yes, I know.
That's what I love about this. It's like, no, it's saying, okay, so yeah, let's just get all this down so then we can just exist past it all for this hour and a half.
Yeah.
Which is just, I think, what is so just sort of the hyper anti-intellectual, just past it all. I just love it. It's like, just give up thinking for a sec about it.
Which is so fucking ironic
exist
too.
In it.
Because I think often the people who like jizz over this type of movie the most are like hyper intellectuals.
That's me. It's like, but that's why I'm like a high-low person, is because I think about these things, but I love the low.
It's almost like a fucking, he's fucking with everybody.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm guessing, this is total fucking speculation and conjecture on my part, but I imagine that Jim Jarmusch like watches the fan like and like praise and like the reviewer fucking, you know, jerk off session over him, and he's like, you dumb fuck. You just fell right into the trap. Like, I'm literally making fun of you to your face, and you're going, this is amazing.
But it's past, like, just, I mean, yeah, he's making fun of stuff, but it's not in that typical way.
It's not, you're right.
Because it's coming from a place that I think heavily, like, acknowledges death and the human condition.
True.
Like,
you're right.
That's the sort of starting standpoint. And he's just sort of like, again, I said, like, this film felt like watching someone die, but with being able to, as if, laugh with them about it, or sort of experience it with them in a way where you aren't distracted by your typical emotions surrounding it. But there's still this sense of just sort of mortality and, I don't want to say hopelessness, but definitely, you know, loss of power in
there's sort of
in your situation.
Yeah, there's like a futile ness.
Yeah, exactly. Which, like, I loved when Chloe Sevigny's character just can't deal with that.
Yeah.
Like,
what do you call that? Isn't there a term for that? It's nihilistic, I guess, to a certain degree.
Yeah, but the fact that he approaches it with humor doesn't make me feel like he's totally sort of hating life or saying none of it's worth it.
You're right. Yeah,
but
it's interesting.
But sort of reaching that state that we just kind of, I think, finally able to nail that, like, I loved that so much. And to see that then incorporated into the story itself, it's like as if the characters too were feeling that feeling. And then it's like, you're like, well, where is this movie going? And the characters are like, well, what do we even do kind of along with you? Because of that feeling of like, you're so aware of your impending death, yet we're still alive kind of thing. So I love that when they just went, well, I guess we drive around. And they're kind of like, well, because we're cops, we go on patrol.
Yeah.
And then that's just sort of what leads them to that's what motivates. We
do what we do because that's what we do.
Yeah. And then so Adam Driver and Bill Murray are just kind of like, yep, you know, they're just doing it. But then you have that existential doom that's there, you know, sort of they've gone past that fear point. But then you know, Chloe Sevigny's character is the one who's just, once she sees her grandma, is like, I would rather, you know, I can't deal with this.
Yeah.
Gets up, gets eaten by her own choice.
It makes me realize, and I was never really well versed in this play, but I think that there's some big similarities, at least thematically and with intention, to Waiting for Godot, or Godot, depending on how big of a snob you want to be, which is essentially existentialism. Like, that's what that play is, and it's classified as, of just sort of these two dudes in having an existential like debate over who they are, what they're doing, and why, and does any of it matter, and whether or not you fall in line with what you're told you should do, or if you have free will. And like, so that play is exploring all these broad things in a weird way. I mean, this movie's kind of doing that.
Great.
So I'd have to like brush up on that play more but it just now in our getting to this place of what we're talking about makes me realize there's some interesting similarities there.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. So what I guess people are saying again, a well-worn comedy, the well-worn commentary, not comedy. This is the one that, again, like made me feel it all. Like, even just the song put me there. Like, the Dead Don't Die as refrain. Cool, it was a good song, I thought. Yeah. And like lyrically, it just did what the best of songs do. I wish I was trying to find it after the fact, but I couldn't find it online. But I just remember. So this is a question that I couldn't find. That song is not that's a made up song for this. Yeah, that's what I figured. But just sort of like the best of songs, putting you in a headspace that you want to be in to sort of be contemplating things at the right level. It accomplished that, and the fact that it was a repeated song throughout too. Well, and I think it's really smart what Jarmusch does early on is have the song come on the radio, and Bill Murray is like, he's like, "Wow, this sounds really familiar," and Adam Driver goes, "Yeah, it's the theme song to the movie." So right away you go, "Oh, okay, we're in a movie where we're acknowledging that we're in a movie." Yeah. And Bill Murray is sort of like slow to pick up on what that even means. Right. And so it's really, I mean, that is really, really fucking, if you're going to be sort of in this meta world, having characters that are in different places, right? Not everybody can be in on the joke. Yeah. But it really, really gives you a very quick sense of where each individual character is and defines them clearer. You go, oh, Bill Murray's character is the guy who is aware enough to know something's up, but wants to hold on to his own reality enough to kind of glaze over it. Yeah, and Adam Driver he's straight in. The one who's read the script. Right. And Chloe Sevigny is even more not, like, you could say to her character, we're in a movie, and she would just stare at you blankly. Right? Yeah. Like, she's like, no, she is firmly set in the movie's reality. Yeah. I mean, I was pretty satisfied with the amount of character I got from them and how they were all different. From those three, yes. Yeah. But I didn't like, I'm slip into things that didn't work. I wanted more of Tom Waits, and I wanted that to pay off. Got it. But like, I think a big distinction I liked between their characters, or a moment that kind of emblemized a lot of what the movie was doing for me, I really liked, was when Chloe Sevigny was freaking out as just the three of them, and she's like, just, please, like, tell me it will be okay, kind of thing. Yeah. And Adam Driver is representing, like, it feels like these are all just sides of the filmmaker. Like, all three of them are the filmmaker, and Adam Driver is just like, is the brutal nihilistic side, just like, where it's not going to come out good. Right. Sorry. And then Bill Murray, though, I love this because it was an example of what I feel like are warring truths. We talk about horror explores a lot, the inherent paradox that is reality. Where, like, Adam Driver isn't wrong, but I think also Bill Murray isn't wrong to, in that moment, do what she wants and just say, like, at the same time, you don't actually know, even though he says, this is going to be fine. We're all going to make out of this okay. And she feels much better. That's not wrong to do or to think. No, it's very often the reason people fight. Yeah. Because some people are unwilling to just give the other person what they need in the face of the truth. Sometimes
somebody's, somebody is like, I don't actually need you to tell me the truth. I need you to just give me a hug.
Yeah, but
you know what I mean?
At the same time, this movie, though, was playing in such a way where, like, maybe, for all I knew, that like, where we thought they were going to die, they were going to find a copy of the script and rewrite it,
That's true, yeah.
Like, the rules are out the window
Yeah,
as soon as you introduce those elements to it. So that's what I mean that more literally and paradoxically when I say they are both not wrong.
Right. I guess I mean in terms of just the moment, the character moment, like a human moment. It's like, it is sort of pointing back at us where it's like, you don't have to be a dick.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
It's true. Yes, we know it's true, but also sometimes you need to just let go of that and like be in the moment and like be nice.
Because right now it's okay. They're just still in there.
Yeah.
Like, is he really doing anyone any favors? And those questions are, it's like you can argue either way.
Sure.
Which I just love that.
Well, it's just really smart to have 3 characters that represent these 3 sort of, points in the spectrum and to watch them interact.
Yeah.
And be like, oh yeah, that's cool. That's
well, kind of like, I guess I was saying it's all interesting how it's representing Jim Jarmusch's different, you could hear they're all his inner monologue.
Yeah.
Almost. But I just love how subjective it was with his, not just with his humor, because there were funny parts to it too, as brutal and dark as I think it really was in an underlying way. It was funny, and with his filmmaking, there was a lot that this was specific to him I thought was great. With like when Tilda Swinton alien is doing up the bodies and like painting makeup on their faces, it wasn't enough that their eyes are blinking open because they're turning into zombies.
Yeah.
There's that little ding sound effect, and each one had their own little slightly like higher, lower tone to it,
right.
like that. As a sort of emotive filming, or bringing it into the realm of a sound effect.
Right.
That was funny. And then
style.
Yeah, his style on display. Like, oh God, where I just was not expecting it, but it was so perfect. Was when Selena Gomez introduces herself, like says her character's name to the guy as they're leaving, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I mean, da da da," and it's like, and then there's like an animation that appears over her.
Oh yeah, It's like sparkles and shit around her head.
So
yeah,
good.
it's almost a little. That stuff is a little. Scott Pilgrim-y almost to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's why I say style. Like, I love that. Why can't I think of his name?
Edgar Wright?
Yeah, Edgar Wright. All I could think was Eddie. I was like, what the fuck is this?
You're on a first Eddie basis with him.
Yeah, me and Eddie. Edgar Wright. Yeah, I love how his movies are very clearly like, define the world. This is a style, and like, I'm allowed to do this shit. I think that's a really fun place to live. So when it happened in this, it's like, I mean, it feels like I'm getting sprinkles of just style all over the place. But there's a lot of variation in Jarmusch's stuff. Like, he's all over the place.
Yeah,
not in a bad way, but like, he's not picking one of these things and then sticking to it throughout. He's picking 50 of them.
Right. Well,
each moment has its own little sort of style to it.
I did like, though, even if the style was, you could say, though, like, it being peppered was the consistent style.
Yes. Oh yeah. No, I think that is who he is.
So I love that. And then, but the humor that was on display outside of just the stylistic examples were, it wasn't laugh out loud funny, but it just like tickled me every time that you said the phrase, "Oh yeah, to kill the zombies, you always kill the head."
Right.
In order to defeat a zombie, kill the head. Like I just love that. Brings me joy. And then same with every time they played the song, it was just like I liked it every time.
Yeah.
It didn't have to be, oh, again, like the crazy guy in the theater.
Dude behind you.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I really liked the 3 kids. Not the CDC kids, although I like them too.
Yeah.
Those two groupings, the Selena Gomez and the two dudes, I don't know who. I know I've seen both of those dudes. I just don't know from where. I don't know if they're Disney, because she came up through Disney, didn't she?
Selena Gomez?
Yeah,
I think so.
She did. So maybe they're also Disney. It would make sense that they came up through that.
Kind of great.
But I like the three of them because they're such fucking archetypes.
Yeah.
But they're archetypes that I like, and I like movies where I get to see them do something.
Right.
And the style of them I like. And it's very much, I mean, he's making a pretty clear, I think, point with adding them and saying they sort of represent a few things.
It was interesting because it felt like he really appreciated their points of view kind of thing, and like respected sort of where kids are at, younger people are at, coming from a lot of places,
as opposed to being like about them.
Right, which is what the older people were. But this is perfect. I want to this is like, he seemed to offer a varying degrees of sort of love and criticism towards the characters. Like there's some, like a lot of the older characters of the Steve Buscemi character where it just felt like you're only laughing at them, kind of thing. As I said, varying degrees, all these different characters play out. So, but then it's so interesting, the only people we actually kind of fully like as a character or person, I think, is the alien, though, who turns out to be a literal alien getting taken away in a UFO, Tilda Swinton. Like, she's weird, but she's she's kind of the sort of the only one who knows how to deal with the situation. And then you have further down the line of, as far as where you actually see more, I think, respect on his perspective is those younger people you mentioned. The 6 of them, I guess it would be, right?
The CDC 3 there's a whole scene of them before the news can... Usually you would get, like, in a really, like, kind of bullshit traditional way, you would get the news telling us the story, right?
Yeah.
Being like, here's what's going on. And the 3 kids are watching the news, and they get it before the news does.
Right.
And they're young. I mean, what would you say? They're all teenagers for sure.
Like 14, 15, I don't know how old the kids are.
So like corrections, what is that called? Detention center. So it's like they're probably all 13 or something like that. But they're fucking super smart, and they're like, oh shit. And we're fucked because we're in
slightly
here.
older ones were the road tripping ones, I think. But they were likable, I think, because they were really realistically drawn and just sort of like, you know what I mean? But yet I could see his sort of criticism there too. Like, while he has a respect and love, they were, I think, accurately, realistically, the fault of each generation. We all have them. And the younger people one is, we almost do have, they all felt really almost sort of stoic or detached in the moment. Right. It's sort of like the stereotype of, the younger generations being the worst with the social media or with your phones or blah, blah, blah. Or, I don't know, or like almost overly blasé towards things, which I don't know, that's a totally generalized, but we both admit they felt realistic. They all felt realistic. Yeah. And that was kind of coming through, I think, that perspective of them, where he's like, has faith in them, in us, and
they're the youngest ones are the only ones that survive the movie.
Yeah.
We never see them again.
I thought they all died.
I don't
Those
think so.
youngest ones maybe we don't see again.
No,
but
they run across the street. They
teenagers
get out of the CDC. They run across the street at some point. We see them again when they're out, and then they're off.
Right, but I guess the older ones, Selena Gomez's crew,
well, they all get killed.
Yeah,
I mean, Adam Driver chops all their heads off. So
right.
It's interesting because I love that fucking car. The car that they're in is the car from...
You always are mentioning the cars in the films, Tim.
It's the car from the first Psycho.
Okay. The one that they bury in the water.
No, sorry, not the first Psycho. What am I talking about? Jesus.
Evil Dead?
No, it's from the first Night of the Living Dead.
Oh, okay.
That was weird. My brain. It's the same car. It's a fucking amazing car. Cool. And it looks so good. And then everybody's commenting on it. I'm like, yeah, because that's what we would do.
Again, this sort of
It's that
semi-awareness of other films or what world are we in. That's another example of it.
Yeah, it's both. It's acknowledging its own references.
Yeah. I guess the last thing about the characters I had was I felt like the only sort of almost, I got to define what I mean here by normal, but the only normal person was the crazy homeless person because he was an outside observer. Like he felt like for some reason that if the audience has one person just to sort of watch this cast of characters with, who are all varying degrees of or whatever, but essentially are all like we're watching a play or something, he was the one who felt like, what is that character in the play who's kind of the one who brings us into the world and sort of is our perspective to watch it all play out.
I mean, in a way, he's the narrator, I guess.
Yeah.
Sort of. He's Jiminy Cricket, He's sort of being like, I'm a part of this story, but I'm also going to tell you about it because I'm outside of it as well.
Right. So,
but I think he is Jim Jarmusch.
Yeah.
Like, I think he's the most... I mean, he even looks like him in a way.
Tom Waits.
Yeah, like Tom... I think Jarmusch has used Tom Waits specifically because he feels some sort of kinship or some, he feels like they're on the same plane. And, like a lot of directors, they'll find an actor or a performer that they feel like kind of represents them. But I think that there's a really interesting aspect to that character in this, in that he is just an observer. He doesn't fucking get involved. He watches the end sequence of them dying and just is narrating.
Yep.
So I think he really is the closest representation to Jarmusch, his actual perspective as a filmmaker.
It's interesting because there's something in there for me with that character of like, he's representing Jarmusch, and as I said, also I think representing or acting as our perspective too. But it did something interesting to me, the fact that like this one that maybe we relate to the most in a certain way is the one who's alone in the woods with no, creature comforts or anything.
Well, I mean, I have to admit, recently with a bunch of like, just life being life, I keep having that thought of like, I just want to fucking go be away from people and like live in the woods by myself. So,
Right.
maybe that's a part of where we're at right now. A lot of people are feeling that way, and Jarmusch is sort of going, yeah.
Right. And I think it's what was interesting about it, maybe I'm trying to get to, is we all think we're the only ones feeling that in a way.
Right. We're not.
Like we're still...
We're definitely not.
It's ironic, we're sitting thinking we're alone in the woods watching all these things go on when it's really like everyone's alone in the woods watching each other,
Yeah. Well, and I think actually irony is probably the biggest tool that he's using. Although I'm always a little like, how do you define irony exactly?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I think we get the feel for it.
Yeah. It's definitely there, but again, it just sort of puts us there as a starting point and then goes beyond it. Like saying, we all are there already. So
yeah, it's almost like he's saying, look at this, it's ironic, and then having the characters go, say what is ironic about it.
So clearly this film gave me all sorts of like ideas to think about, things to meditate on.
I can see how this is a movie that you would love.
Right.
It does have a sensibility that's like that you have. Even in last week when we talked about Dolly Dearest and your film, like your what was it called?
Drew Todd.
Drew Todd, right? There is almost a similar sort of like self-referential or sort of aware thing to it that's like, I don't give a fuck. Which I love.
Well, that's great to hear. But what I wanted to say with like, so if this is giving me all these things to think about, what I loved was that the film, I sort of mentioned there's like the lack of actual stuff happening, as far as just sort of story plotting wise. As I guess we're going to go do our patrol now. Like we had already talked about that. But the whole film had that meditative state that allowed me to sort of think on those ideas. Where again, it sort of then put me in I'm just feeling it all versus like, oh yeah, this was sort of an inspiration point and is there in a Dawn of the Dead. For me, it was like really a contemplation on all these ideas, and the sort of mode and tempo of the film supported that.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
The Gore Moments, I think because they were limited and far few, were very impactful. Like when the motel manager guy was eating an arm. It was just like so visceral to him.
Well, you know whose arm that is?
Whose?
It's the young of the three. It's Selena Gomez's. It's the black kid's arm because it has the watch that 2 scenes earlier he is like listening to and being like, my watch has stopped. And it's like he's holding that arm and the watch is on that arm and he's chewing on the end of it. And I was like, wow, it's a smart little like, thread.
Yeah.
To be like, oh wait, he got to them. And then the next scene is the cop showing up and realizing that those kids are dead.
Right. God.
That's cool.
A thread. You mentioned it that I really loved was, at one point they're like, oh, should we tell Steve Buscemi's character what's going on?
Yeah.
Who's like the one with the MAGA hat type thing.
Frank, right? Farmer Frank or something like that.
Yeah. Farmer Miller.
Yeah.
But how they say, oh, I'll get her to, we'll get someone to call him. But it's so funny that he's the only one who has no idea what's going on. I thought that was really funny how he's calling them trespassers. He's
true,
like shooting what
yeah.
are clearly like monster zombies,
Yeah.
like in the face, like close up. It's like, darn trespassers.
He's sort of representing this like older generation in their own little bubble of like,
Right. Well, they're like saying darn tornadoes versus darn global warming.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I think it's kind of a movie where like I was saying, on its surface, well, I don't know if I said this, but I was thinking on its surface, I can see why a lot of people would be like, yeah, I just think it's kind of whatever and dumb, or like, yeah, we've heard these jokes, or yeah, this or that. Mm-hmm. But it is a movie that needs a little bit of like scratching off the surface to get into and realize the depth of like what he is commenting on.
Yeah.
And like how he's doing it and being very specific about what those things are. So from a first and a distracted viewing, I left being like, but in even just discussing it, I'm like, yeah, it's a much better movie than I left feeling it was.
I'm excited to see it again. I want to. The last thing I had was just the ending. So it felt like it was one of those clear examples of where you're in a movie and if they just did something differently, they'd be able to succeed. Like they get themselves trapped, surrounded by zombies pretty easily. But really, I feel like I've been in that situation in a video game plenty of times, and you just hang back, you kill them as they come in, you find a small, like there's a way to do it.
But that's not what the script told them to.
Right, exactly. Exactly, Tim.
That's a fucking big idea,
yes.
too.
Yes, how fascinating is that?
Because it's basically the same as just saying, hey, world, real world, like that we live in, not a simulation, the one that you and I, Ryan, live in, and we're all, you listeners, are living in. We're under the impression that we're doing things, that we have to do things a certain way because the fucking script told us to.
Yes.
That's a fucking brain melter idea to get into.
I'm so glad, because I couldn't figure out how to articulate what I liked so much about it, and that is it.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's like
we're all just sheep, Ryan. We're all fucking sheep.
Well, it's more like too that I think their characters as characters. Second time in the episode, Tim's headphones fell off. By the way, their characters represent, especially by the ending there, like ourselves as non-growing people, like what Jim Jarmusch is having a sort of, a skeptical laughing eye at is all of us, and caught in our habits kind of thing. Because this is what the part of the movie where we'd want to see the characters go through some sort of growth or change or go through that hero's journey.
That ain't his thing.
Yeah, but he says something about the hero's journey, I think, in real life, and where the reason the hero's journey is a powerful thing is because that's we all have that in our life in some way. Working, making life about sort of catching ourselves in our own self-defeating habits, which I think by being aware they could have escaped, but if they had gone through something but didn't, just sort of reinforce that whole feel of like, oh God, that of making it a horror film of like, that feeling of being trapped in my own whatever. I want to get out of it. I want to step outside the circle and fight it,
Well, and again, he's basically, there's a reason we like the hero's journey.
Yeah.
Because it gives us at least a temporary respite from the mundane shittiness of our lives to believe that there can be, a broader like catharsis in life, that there can be a meaning or there can be a goal or there can be an achievement.
A lot of us do get there, but the thing is, it's this that we're. I guess say what you were saying is, but a big part of that is that we're watching it in condensed form. So it's like we're watching a whole person's life play out in a couple hours.
But we're also watching a thing to remind us that there's like hope out there.
Yeah.
That's, part of sort of the why we gravitate to that, why that story, the hero's journey, has been around forever, is like the story that sticks around for all of humanity, is because it's representative of like maintaining hope in our lives.
Yeah.
And he's basically, in his own way, again, saying, yeah, sorry, I'm not going to give that to you.
Right.
Because that's not life.
And saying life is the struggle too.
Yeah.
And then I think, another reason maybe why he was doing it that way, I don't want to say why, but what it was doing for me is how that ending played out was, rather than just yelling at them, the characters, for not approaching the situation better, I stopped myself from doing that because it felt like I would have been yelling at myself, or you know what I mean? Like by that acknowledgement we talked about of just sort of, it brings light our own trappings and our own faults. It sort of did this weird meta thing like the rest of the movie, where like rather than yelling at the people in the horror movie for running upstairs, to get away from the killer, it felt like, since it put me in the place of feeling like, well, who am I to judge for someone not doing the right thing?
Well, and furthermore, they're accepting that that's what they need to do. Whereas I think one of the traditional tropes of a zombie film is that they fight and fight and fight and fight to the end, without like there's no hope. It's like they're gonna get overtaken, and that's what makes the movie sort of bleak.
Yeah.
In this, they're like, they know they're gonna die. Like, they know that they have to go through that thing because it's a zombie movie, but because they know it, it's a different version of that ending.
Yeah.
It's sort of it's again self-aware.
At the same time, it was all satisfying because it felt like they were just stepping into their destiny, just sort of
that's what I mean.
Sort of acceptance,
Yeah, the acceptance part, I think, is what makes this ending different than the trope of zombie movies, where it's like, oh look, we've gotten to the place of safety, and then we didn't realize that the back door was unlocked, and they got in, and fuck, we're dead.
Yeah.
Like every Romero movie.
Right. But and how you see though how like the only way to pull off anything what we're saying that as far as that ending goes is this kind of film where that's not your typical zombie film at all.
Yeah. For
so
sure.
I mean that's why I feel like totally justifies using the zombie film formula and kind of makes sense as one coming at the way tail end of this sort of the zombie craze of the aughts.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, should we move on?
Yes. What did not work?
It's not ready yet.
Seems to work okay.
No, something important's missing.
What did not work?
I think this is going to be your section, Tim.
Well, here's the thing. In a way, I've kind of addressed a lot of the things that didn't work in that.
In brief, yeah.
Yeah, it's like there are certain things that upon initial like interaction with them, I was like, all right, like I've seen that. It's exactly what you were saying. A lot of critics are saying this sort of same thing where they're like, it's the same sort of pointing at these broader ideas that we've seen a bunch of times. Like, yes, it is doing that. And yes, my initial reaction was like, okay, like what are we doing? But now having sat on it for a few days, I'm appreciating why it's constructed the way it is. I feel less annoyed by it. Having said that, I don't want to really revisit the movie that badly, or even really at all. I mean, maybe one day I will, but not really. So it's not enough. So to me, it kind of middled out of like where I think, like I said earlier, I wanted a little bit more of something to excite me, but that's a taste thing. Mm-hmm. That's not his style, and it's why I haven't loved really any of his movies. I've kind of watched, I don't know, 4 or 5 of them, and with each one I've kind of been like, yeah, I think I see where he's going, and I appreciate that. It's not really my thing. So that's kind of where I land with this. The examples are like, you know, there's a kind of a corniness, I guess, in the directing of the actors. Like,
I love that.
And I generally just don't love that.
Yeah.
It's just not my thing. I really, really like realism. So anytime you're getting what you might call ironic acting or almost slapstick acting, I'm not into it, generally speaking. So that was kind of my big thing. Like, I think the most glaring example of this, there's 2, are Danny Glover in general. And that may just be that he's living his life and not trying to be a good actor. Or he was directed to behave a certain way.
I thought he was somewhat a fan of exactly what you aren't a fan of. I loved him in it.
Right.
You know?
Well, that's kind of my point, right? Like, he's doing a thing that I just don't love. And then the Iggy Pop and who was the other Carol
Kane.
Yeah. Their performances as zombies is too self-referential and in on the joke. And I'm just not a fan of that. It's cheesy to me. And so I'm sort of like, yeah, meh. It's almost like they're acting, and I don't like actors who are acting. That's just not my style.
Like all that again, it was just used for me in a way where it's like, oh, it's not a joke per se. Like I didn't feel like oh, this isn't working for me.
But they're in on it. I think that's it's a fine line, because like even Adam Driver being in on it, when that first came up, I was like, ooh, I don't love this thing. It's not my thing.
I will say, I mean, what didn't work for me, I think, is only a first time viewing thing, which was like when that comes up, I'm just like, whoa.
Right.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Hold on.
I think you're right.
This is so unfamiliar, and
Yeah.
nothing in the first 15 minutes has 10 minutes or whatever has primed me for this. It took me a while to sink into the movie.
Yeah. And you're right. I think if I watched it again, knowing exactly what it is, it'd be easier for me to just be on board. But I also am not a huge fan of real-time sort of style. Like, I love good structure, and I love like beats hitting, and I love when directors are really good at manipulating the pace of a thing to keep it kind of like keep you, the viewer, on your toes. And that's not what his style is at all. He's doing a very different thing. And it just isn't my thing. So it's hard because it's not necessarily like what we've talked about before as like what didn't work, but I guess it didn't work for me.
That's
but
what our segments are, though.
Movie.
That's what our segments are.
I know.
What did not work for us. What did work for us?
Yeah.
What would you tell yourself as far as avoiding streaming, renting, or buying?
Yeah. No, that's true. So, the self-referential and borderline self-indulgentness of him referencing his own characters and movies, I thought was not working for me too. And that's a hard one because I'm not like super well versed in those movies, but I kind of was like, I know what these like.
That.
You know, certain people are named certain things, like Iggy Pop being in like the coffee, like being like coffee. It's like, yeah, we know why that is. It's like it's a reference to coffee.
Well,
and
like
cigarettes
Ronnie Peterson is Adam Driver's character, who is in his movie Patterson.
Exactly. So there's so much of that I felt it was a little
for
like.
Me, that's the same like. That is just another example of blurring those lines between realities.
Sure.
Like, I loved that. It was just the same as like Rosie Perez was playing Posey Juarez. You're just kind of like, what? It's just this sort of, you take in the film reality and our reality and just sort of shake it up in his weird head.
I agree.
Comes out.
The knee-jerk reaction to that I have to it is, you're being too cute. Mm-hmm. And I'm generally like... I don't like it when people are being cute.
And I'm like, too cute for what? Like,
for me.
Yeah. See? So
that's,
exactly.
That's, it really is just a taste thing.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I felt there's a couple shots that are clear, obviously, like having the car from Night of the Living Dead is an overt one, but even having the hand coming out of the grave and the way it does is basically the poster of Night of the Living Dead. And I had mixed feelings about it, where I was like, you're actually doing the exact shot.
Right.
And I'm not sure I guess what I wanted, a slightly different take. And like most of the movie is its own take, so it's hard to sort of define that.
Those wouldn't work for me the same. Like I felt like you had to do exactly what came before, so then you could have a UFO come and get Tilda Swinton.
Okay, well that's my last one. I just didn't. I was like, fuck you.
Oh, that was great.
I don't know why it pissed me off, but it pissed me off. I understand, and I think it's an effective and like appropriate thing.
I get
but
being
I just was like,
I can get the.
It made me think of fucking Dude, Where's My Car, and I just wanted to be like.
See, I get it if it feels like if he's intending your response is like the only right response is, oh my God, this is the funniest, best thing ever. You know, like it almost feels like it's supposed to be that, which is off-putting. But then for me, I'm just like, oh, it's not that at all. It's just it's beyond all that for me. You know.
Here's a almost a meta way of describing how it makes me feel. I'm less mad at Jim Jarmusch and more mad that he did a thing that the guy I don't like in the world, i.e. the guy sitting next to me and i.e. the guy laughing at every fucking thing, is going to be like, ha ha ha, yes! Fucking awesome!
That's what
you got it! You got me!
That was the same voice I was doing, essentially, that kind of thing.
And I think that's what pisses me off about it, is because those dickheads... This is such a weird thing to say, but like, I don't like those guys, and those guys are getting off on this thing and thinking that they're in on the joke.
Right.
And in a weird way, they're like I said before, I almost feel like they may be the joke.
Yeah, because I feel like their laughter strikes me in those parts. It's more a sort of, I don't know what to do here laughter. Like if you're in some inexplicable situation and you have, okay, how is everybody going to react to this? I think some people like just not knowing what to do, kind of at horror movies that are trying to be straight horror movies. They laugh.
Sure.
Because it's like, well, what else? I don't know what else to do. I'm lost, confused, scared kind of thing.
But that guy's laughing to tell everybody in the audience that he gets it. And he's in on the joke.
I think
and
people like that who do that.
That's the guy who pisses me off.
Right. Exactly. I don't think they're too concerned about if they're right or wrong. You know, and laughing.
So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for me. I'm gonna enjoy it more a second time alone in my apartment.
Yeah. Ditto. And I've heard really good things about Down by Law and Dead Man, so I kind of want to.
I've seen Dead Man.
Like those two, and then sort of reassess it all. What?
I don't think I've seen Down by Law. I can't remember.
It's someone
Tom Waits in that one.
I don't know. I haven't seen it. Someone I know of is kind of connected to. It was their favorite film. So
cool.
I'm curious.
So, did you have anything?
That was what I told you. Is this a first viewing experience? It took me a while to sink into.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah, and like I said, circumstances didn't help.
So, things of note.
Yeah.
Things of note.
This should be interesting.
Well, the only thing I had was theater going experience, and we completely covered that.
Well, we did that. Did you guys all see our Instagram? There were all those fun, what do you call those pop-up things?
Super standees.
Yeah. We took a bunch of pictures of those. That was fun. I mean, I thought it was interesting to go to this sort of pre-screening thing and to see that this movie is getting that, it's filling up for this pre-screening. So it sort of is an interesting crowd to be in.
Yeah.
In spite of the two dickheads. Like, the rest of the crowd seemed really fucking, like, there to watch a movie.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of the time, I think you go to, I mean, it's one of the reasons that I bitch about the movie experience sometimes is because it's like, there are people there that aren't there to see the movie. They're there just fucking hang out and like they're in their own little world and not acknowledging that there's a room of other people there.
Well, we got our Alamo Draft House opening really soon. I think that could be more your crowd.
Out here? Mm-hmm. I didn't know about that.
Downtown LA.
Oh, fucking cool.
Yeah.
That's sweet. Yeah. So yeah, exactly. I really appreciate when the crowd is really fucking a crowd of movie goers as opposed to sort of casual whatevers.
Yeah.
What else is of note? I don't know.
I think it's fine. We don't have
Yeah, I don't really have much because I mean, a lot of the stuff we kind of just brushed up against just in talking about
I know.
Other films. So yeah, I think I'm good.
Great. So that's it for The Dead Don't Die.
We did it.
Now we can move on to keeping up the word dead, our RecommenDEADtions.
Mm-hmm. Theme music. Wait a minute.
Sorry.
So can you check my notes real quick on what I've recommended before?
Why?
Because the one that I want to recommend, I'm pretty sure I haven't. It's called Cheap Thrills.
I don't think you've recommended it.
It's cool. It's on Shudder right now. It's Pat Healy. He's in a bunch of really fucking good indie movies. He's in Innkeepers. He's the dude in Innkeepers.
Oh, okay.
This movie, Cheap Thrills, I don't want to say anything about it, to be honest.
Who would appreciate it?
It's a mind fuck. Like, his character is getting mind fucked. So if you like movies like The Game, where you kind of, you really don't know who's on whose side and what's actually reality and if it's all fucking, like, manipulation or if the person's actually going crazy. Like, I love the lead character who it's because there's sort of a mystery aspect to it of like what's going on, but there's also he's being fucked with, and I love watching a character have to fucking get through that. Mm-hmm. It's sort of a Dante's Inferno-y kind of feel where he's just going through the levels of hell, not literally, but like that's sort of the experience, and he comes out on the other end like wildly fucking different for it.
Cool.
It's a really cool fucking movie.
Well, that's my Shudder, so I'll watch it.
I know, right? Yeah, it's fucking cool, and I kind of want to watch it again because I think I watched it about a year ago.
I'll add it to my list.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I don't listen too much, but I got a podcast I'll check up within every once in a while when there's an episode that looks good. It's another horror movie podcast called Horror Queers. You can guess it's two dudes talking horror movies, but from a queer perspective. They first grabbed me with their Scream episode, which was great. And then I very much enjoyed their Dead Ringers episode. And they have another Cronenberg episode. They did Psycho 2 also. So I've listened to enough of them. But Tim, they did Calvaire. Ooh. So I was very excited to hear that. And after hearing the Calvaire episode, I'm like, okay, I can fully recommend it now. It was really fun to hear their take on all these films. So check out, and they're Bloody Disgusting. They're with them.
Oh, cool.
So it's a whatever sponsor. I don't know. Part of the umbrella. Whatever. Bloody Disgusting podcast. Horror Queers.
Nice. Cool. What's next?
Now is the time where I check up with you to see if you have watched I Saw the Devil yet.
Fuck no, I haven't.
All right. Well, you should see it, Tim.
I know.
So
is it
now,
on Shudder?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
All right. Well, now that was that portion of the show, now is the time where we choose next week's film. And I don't know whose turn it is to pull because I get thrown off. Who pulled the Dolly Dearest?
You?
I think I pulled Dolly Dearest, and this was the movie one, so that means it's back to you.
Okay. This one. Martin.
Oh yeah, you've been wanting to
78.
see this George Romero movie.
That's right. Ooh.
I haven't seen it in a long time.
How coincidental.
Why? Oh, because George Romero zombies? I'm like, it's a vampire movie. What do you mean?
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Cool. We'll go from zombies to vampires.
Great.
Sweet.
Great. I think it's a good one to talk about. It's a big one. It's in a lot of...
78.
Yeah.
The year of my birth.
Oh, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Should have been called Tim
Martin.
Tim Martin. All right. Well, you can find us at dismemberinghorror.com. There's links to all our social medias there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You should do that. Tell a friend.
Please, tell a friend.
Listen. Oh, wait, you are. Listen to the next ones.
Yeah.
Listen to the old ones.
The idea is, hopefully now that we've built up a bit of a catalog, you can say, oh, I've wanted to see this movie. You'll watch it, then you listen to our episode to process it and journal it for yourself and decide what you thought. Do you vehemently disagree with us?
That's a cool idea because it never really occurred to me that like at a certain point we'll have like 200 episodes or whatever, right?
I mean, this is episode 44. It's already a good.
We're moving along.
There's got to be something there that you.
So at a certain point, somebody's just gonna happen upon the podcast, right? They're gonna be looking for a podcast and they're gonna see, oh, there's 200 episodes, and then they're gonna listen to one, and they're gonna go, oh shit, like. They don't fucking...
We get it how it
works.
They
just go in.
We got it.
And then they're going to go look through all of the things we've done. That's a fucking fun thing. Tell friends that.
Tim's just figuring this out now.
Wait, that's what we're doing? Yeah, so there you go.
That's where you can find us.
Find us. Talk to us. We're on Instagram and Twitter and all that.
Yeah. And, well, I suppose we can wrap it up here. So, in closing, thanks for listening.
And we will see you next time.
Goodbye.